people are light years away. Like, I remember bringing Daddy Yankee to Dame Dash and saying, yo, this is the next dude. And Daddy Yankee wanted like $2 million at the time. And Dame Dash said, give him Rockaware. This shit, it hurt me. This man became to be the most lucrative person on.
And you can't tell somebody that did all those things to do it different. If I wouldn't have done it the way I did it, there would be no Jay-Z. I'm going to say this, and you ask Jay-Z anytime, there would be no Jay-Z as a rapper if it wasn't for me. He wasn't trying to do it.
He wasn't trying to rap?
No, he was trying. He was rapping with jazz. He had stopped completely.
Have you ever had that strange experience where you see something so clearly that others just can't perceive yet? That moment when you're absolutely certain about a future pattern, but everyone around you thinks you're speaking another language. I was watching that infamous Dame Dash interview where he predicted the streaming revolution years before it happened, saying record companies would become obsolete as artists went direct to consumers. The executives laughed it off as crazy talk. Fast forward to today, and it's exactly how the industry operates. This pattern fascinates me because Dame Dash represents one of the most profound, compelling paradoxes in modern business. How the same visionary perception that created his greatest successes also generated his most profound challenges. Today, we're exploring this visionary's paradox, examining how Dame's ability to perceive patterns beyond conventional timeframes created both revolutionary breakthroughs and painful disconnections, and what this reveals about the nature of consciousness, time, and the price of seeing what others cannot yet see. So what allows certain minds to perceive future patterns before they fully manifest? Dame Dash doesn't just represent a successful entrepreneur. He embodies a fascinating case study in consciousness operating beyond conventional timeframes. His career reveals a consistent pattern of perceiving future trends years before they become obvious to the mainstream. Think of consciousness like light. Most people perceive reality through reflected light, seeing what's already manifested. Visionary minds like Dame Dash's operate more like radar, detecting patterns still forming beyond the visible spectrum. This isn't mystical, it's a different relationship with information, processing, and pattern recognition. Remember when Dame championed Rockaware at a time when hip-hop fashion was considered a passing fad, or when he invested in digital content platforms while executives still focused on physical distribution? These weren't lucky guesses. They were expressions of a consciousness that naturally detected emergent patterns before they fully materialized. This pattern recognition explains why Dame often appeared frustrated in interviews. He wasn't just being difficult. He was attempting to articulate perceptions that existed in a different time frame than the convention or conversation around him. I've noticed the same quality in other visionaries like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, that characteristic impatience when others can't see what seems obvious to them. The most fascinating aspect is that this capacity isn't supernatural. It's a natural variation in how consciousness processes information. Some minds naturally organize data to extract future patterns, while others excel at optimizing within existing frameworks. Dame's journey reveals both the power and the challenge of operating with this future-oriented perception. How does seeing beyond conventional timeframes create both opportunity and isolation? The central paradox of Dame Dash's journey is that the same perceptual gift that created his greatest successes also generated his most significant challenges. This represents what consciousness researchers might call the visionary's double bind. Seeing what others can't see creates both extraordinary opportunity and profound isolation. Think of it like this: when you perceive patterns others can't yet see, you gain first mover advantage in business, but you also create immediate friction with existing systems. Dame's push for artist ownership direct-to-consumer models, and digital distribution weren't just business strategies. They were direct challenges to consciousness frameworks that couldn't yet perceive things emerging patterns. Look at Dame's famous split with Rockefeller and Jay-Z beyond the personal dynamics. This represented a classic visionary paradox. Dame was pushing towards future models of independence and ownership, while the industry was still operating in a different time frame. His insistence wasn't just stubbornness, it was the frustration of perceiving a future that others couldn't yet see. I've observed how this same pattern creates the love-hate relationship many have with Dame. His confrontational style isn't just personality, it's the natural friction that occurs when consciousness operating in different frameworks collide. When he famously called out music executives or rejected conventional business approaches, he wasn't just being difficult, he was responding to the fundamental discomfort of seeing beyond current reality. The most revealing aspect is how Dame's most controversial statements gradually transform from crazy talk to obvious wisdom as collective consciousness catches up to his perception. The same positions that made him seem unreasonable in 2005 are now considered standard business wisdom in 2025. This time-delayed validation is the classic signature of the visionaries' paradox. Why do visionaries struggle to effectively communicate what they perceive? Dame Dash's journey reveals a fascinating gap between visionary perception and collective understanding. This isn't just a communication problem, it's a fundamental challenge of translating perceptions across different consciousness timeframes. Think of consciousness like radio waves. Dame was broadcasting on a frequency tuned to emerging future patterns, while most industry figures were receiving on frequencies optimized for current reality. This created what communication theorists call perceptual interference. The message gets distorted not because it's wrong, but because the receiving system isn't calibrated to that frequency. Remember Dame's infamous interviews where he appears frustrated, interrupting, or dismissive? Watching closely, you'll notice a pattern. These reactions typically emerge when others are discussing optimizing within current systems, while Dame is perceiving beyond these systems entirely. It's not just impatience, it's the frustration of attempting to communicate across a perceptual gap. This explains why Dame often resorted to creating his own platforms rather than trying to convince existing systems. DD172, his creative collective and gallery space, wasn't just a business venture. It was an attempt to create an environment where his future-orientated perception could manifest without the friction of translation. I've noticed this same pattern with other visionaries. They often appear difficult or arrogant because they're attempting to compress complex future patterns into language optimized for current reality. It's like trying to explain color to someone who sees in black and white. The limitation isn't in the color, but in the perceptual framework receiving the information. The most profound insight here is that visionary communication isn't just about better articulation. It requires creating perceptual bridges that allow others to temporarily access these expanded timeframes of consciousness. Dame's most successful collaborations were with people who could attune to his frequency, even if they couldn't sustain it themselves. How does the visionary's journey reflect our collective evolution of consciousness? The most compelling aspect of Dame Dash's story is watching his ongoing struggle to integrate visionary perception with effective execution and communication. This isn't just his personal journey, it reflects a universal challenge in consciousness evolution. Think of visionary consciousness like raw electrical power, immensely potent but requiring transformation to become practically useful. Dame's evolution reflects the challenge of channeling future perception into present systems without losing its essential power of creating unnecessary resistance. Look at Dame's more recent ventures. They show a fascinating progression towards integration. His interviews now often include acknowledgement of communication challenges. His business approaches increasingly balance visionary direction with collaborative execution. This isn't Dame compromising his vision. It's the natural maturation of visionary consciousness learning to translate itself across timeframes. This integration journey isn't just personal, it reflects how collective consciousness evolves. The ideas Dame championed about independence, direct audience connection, and creator ownership have gradually been integrated into mainstream business consciousness. What was once perceived as disruptive has become foundational. I've observed how this pattern of integration follows a consistent sequence across different visionaries and fields. First, rejection as impossible, then resistance as impractical, then acceptance as innovative, and finally adoption as obvious. Dame's career spans this entire spectrum, from being called crazy for predicting streaming would replace physical distribution to seeing it become the industry standard. The most powerful insight is recognizing that visionaries like Dame aren't just successful business figures. They're consciousness pathfinders who perceive and articulate emerging patterns that eventually become our collective reality. Their journey isn't just about personal success, but about expanding the perceptual frameworks through which we all experience reality. Dame Dash's journey offers us much more than business lessons. It provides profound insights into the nature of perception, time, and the evolution of consciousness. The visionaries' paradox he embodies reveals both the extraordinary power and the inherent challenges of perceiving beyond conventional timeframes. By understanding these dynamics, we gain not just appreciation for figures like Dame, but insight into our own relationship with perception and possibility. Each of us exists somewhere on this spectrum of consciousness, sometimes perceiving beyond current frameworks, sometimes struggling to see what others already recognize. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this perspective. Have you experienced your own version of the visionaries' paradox, seeing possibilities others couldn't yet perceive? Or perhaps you've worked with visionary figures and navigated the challenges of these different perceptual frameworks. Share your insights in the comments below. If this perspective resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on my next video. Until next time, remember that what appears as contradiction or conflict often reveals the growing edge of consciousness evolution. Stay beautiful, stay perceptive, stay awake, stay alert, and stay conscious in the field.